crazy.
Oh.
You ready to go? All right, it's 7 o'clock. All right, we'll get our board meeting started. Welcome. I always enjoy coming to the middle school. We usually get a pyramid or a ziggurat or two on the table, and we do again. And I really enjoy coming to the middle school because it's a unique, they're unique creatures, our middle schoolers. The changes are so dramatic, and I think about how my kids changed from 6th grade to 8th grade, and they're different people. And so people that are drawn to that age group I really admire, because there's maybe a little more drama in dealing with middle schoolers than maybe some others. So thank you for hosting us. We are down a couple board members who are out of town, and Kevin is under the weather, so he is not with us, and Steve is just recovering, but he is operating on 6 of 8 cylinders, he says, and I think he can function. So we'll get started. Because Kevin is not here, I asked Steve to give us sort of the legislative Steve to give us the legislative kind of update, if you would.
Sure. Included in the packet are a couple newsletters from the School Equity Caucus. I'm not going to go through those in any level of detail right now, but a few things just of interest. The January Revenue Consensus meeting or conference was held in January, and again, that information is included in the packet. Generally speaking, it was encouraging. Revenues for both the school aid fund and the general fund are at or above estimates used in the development of the current year budget, and they've also revised upwards estimates for next year as well. I'd like to just point out that is kind of an early reading, and it gives, I would say, some reassurance that the state budget is on track and we don't have any, unforeseen negative surprises coming down the pike based on that. That information usually is kind of the first step in the overall state budget process. So the Revenue Consensus Conference happens in mid-January. Then the governor issues her initial budget recommendation in the beginning of February, and there's a newsletter specifically related to that. Again, I won't go through a lot of that in detail, but a few comments that, that document or the governor's budget proposal really represents her priorities or her idea on what she would like to see happen with the state budget for next year. It's interesting to read, and it provides some information, but you really can't use any of that to, make any decisions. One of the things included in there was essentially, and I'll get the percentage wrong, but around a 4% increase in the foundation allowance. Based on our current enrollment, the increase in the per pupil, which I think was $390 or $490 per kid, equates to just over $1 million. But again, it's just too early to really draw any conclusions from that. It'll really be up to the legislature to develop a budget, agree on it between the House and the Senate, and then move it on to the governor for approval. And that process, there'll be a lot of twists and turns and a lot of changes. In fact, last year, we thought we had a really good sense for what per pupil funding was going to look like right up until mid-June, and then, overnight it changed dramatically. So it's really just, I would say, the beginning of the conversation, the beginning of the process where the state will determine the budget for next year. So stay tuned.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Important dates are on page 6 of the packet. There's the Athletic Boosters are having their fundraising event on the 15th. Indian and Toby have some programs. Our choir concert is on the 20th. You want to give any?
It's our pre-festival concert for 6th grade through 12th grade, and we'll do our thing, and then the next year we'll take it to choir festival in Kalamazoo, district choir festival.
Great. Oh, and I guess I skipped right over the band, and they're doing
say,
similar.
hello.
Sorry. You want to give a shout out for that? You've got a band member.
Yes, I have already but gotten my tickets, which again, whoever made that decision to be able to order our tickets online for events, thank you so much, because it is very, very helpful. But yeah, band is on the 13th.
Okay.
Valentine's Day.
Okay. And in March, you see the board meeting date, and then there's a musical coming up, and you can see all of those dates. All right, so let's proceed then to the budget and finance report. Steve?
Okay, just taking a look at the monthly activity for the general fund. This would include activity through the end of January. And I'm going to just keep it kind of high level this evening and maybe draw out a couple of kind of highlights, and then we'll move on from there and address any questions that might come up. Again, this includes activity through the end of January and revenue on a year-to-date basis. Total, again, just for the general fund, $15,385,419. And total expenditures year-to-date, $18,969,838. And so we've been talking last several months about kind of the timing of our revenues and expenditures, and the fact that we typically see a significant excess of our expenditures over our revenues in the first half of the year, and then typically that will kind of normalize out as the state's funding or payment cycle kind of catches up with how we spend funds. And going back 2 months, that excess of expenditures, I believe, is over $5 million. Last month, it was, I want to say, right around $4.1 million. And so you can see that that continues to reverse, but we still have a ways to go. Expenditures over revenues year to date were not quite $3.6 million. And we've talked last several months about some of the differences. Some of it is timing. And some of it just has to do with different budget assumptions. I wanted to point out really just 2 functional areas where when you compare the current year to the prior year, there's kind of a significant variance. And the first one is and these are both under support services. The first one is under business, and you can see that year to date we're close to $120,000 ahead of where we were at this time last year. And the majority of that is related to 2 items. And one of them I've talked about a fair amount of detail in prior months, so I won't go through it in too much detail, but has to do with when the district's insurance costs, and when I say insurance, I'm not referring to health insurance or employee benefits, but more property, casualty, liability, and those types of insurances. When those hit the books, and you see those costs spread between the facilities, the business, and transportation functions, as those are allocated between fleet insurance, property and casualty, dealing primarily with the property, and then general liability insurance, which is going to show up in the business function. So the difference year to date. And again, this is really primarily timing, although we do see those costs going up year over year by a decent clip. But just that timing difference for insurance is around $93,000. And then another expenditure item that you see in the business function has to do with adjustments to property taxes. So we call them property tax abatements or refunds. And these are adjustments that come through the tax tribunal process, where people have adjustments to their taxable values based on any number of different reasons. Commonly, it will be related to principal residence exemptions and that type of thing. And so we don't know when those are going to come or how much they're going to be. It varies year by year. But those, what I just want to point out, which, that difference in the current year versus the prior year, which is about 26,000, those are typically offset by adjustments through state aid. So these are property taxes that are generated by the general operating levy that's levied against non-homestead properties in the district. And that's part of the base funding or the foundation allowance. So the fact that we end up refunding about 26,000 year to date means that we'll see a similar amount of positive adjustment come through in our state aid revenue. All right, the second area that I wanted to kind of highlight is in facilities, on my schedule here it's listed as maintenance, but that would include basically all the physical facilities of the district. And again, that difference which is about 484,000 year to date. A little over 90% of that difference is attributed to 4 items. First is, again, that property and casualty insurance. That was about 124,000. Second, there are custodial service. In the prior year, we were having some discussions with the service provider on a couple of invoices, and so that delayed payment of those invoices, and those invoices were not captured in the year-to-date figures a year ago. And so that accounted for a difference of about 127,000. Utilities, so our natural gas and electric are running pretty substantially ahead of where we were at this time last year, and that's a combination of an increase in the rates, but also our consumption. And when I look at our consumption, I like to look at what's happening with that. And we're going to have to do a little bit more analysis, but just on the surface, if I look at climate data, just for the 3 months, November, December, and January, if you look at our heating degree days, which is kind of a normalization of temperatures from one year to another between periods to try to, estimate what that's going to do to your utility costs. That 3-month period was significantly colder this year than last year. And, I can't say, directly how much that correlates into increased consumption, but based on the reading I've done, I think there's a pretty high correlation to that. And, our heating is natural gas, but our electricity, when our boilers are running and we're pushing heat, that means a lot of pumps are running, fans are running, and so that, while you think, that our heating costs would be up, but our electricity not so much, it really affects both gas and electric. So that's something I want to keep a close eye on, and of course, as we talk about construction, we've done a lot of work. We put in air conditioning. We've been making a lot of adjustments to the mechanical systems. We've been trying to pick up efficiencies where we can through LED lighting and that type of thing. But I also know that when we start the year, and we were definitely not running at peak efficiency this fall. We had some very hot days and some hot buildings. And we had new systems that were not fully functioning yet. We were just happy to be able to start school, to be honest. But so, we hope that we're going to be able to tweak some things and capture some efficiencies and savings going forward. But I think it's something that, we'll have to have some further conversation about. Of course, Dewey and his role in a prior district, he's got a lot of experience with energy management, and it's something that I know is near and dear to his heart, and so something that we'll want to make sure that we're doing what we can. So that, the utility piece accounted for about close to 75,000. And then we've talked about capital outlay, and one of the things that is reflected in here, and actually this is not in the capital outlay, it's in supplies, but as part of a grant-funded project, we've upgraded security cameras in, you know, a large area of the district. And those cameras were purchased before the end of the last fiscal year, but that work is, you know, happened through the fall, and so that's another 117,000 of just, you know, of expenditures that are in this year that weren't reflected in last year. That amount is covered by a grant, so there will be revenue to offset that. All right, so that's just kind of a high level. I want to point out some of those differences, so, all right. So again, total expenditures year to date for the general fund, not quite 19 million, at 18,969,838. Second page of that report just has the same expenditure data broken down by object code. And as I was reviewing it this evening, I realized that as I put this together on Thursday, and I was not feeling very well, to put it mildly, I noticed that there's just a small difference between the total expenditures on page 2 compared to page 1. It's about $302, and I think just as I made my combinations, I omitted an account. So my apologies on that. So there's just a small difference there. Please be advised of that. But you can see the breakdown between salaries and benefits at 14.2 million. Then you can see the breakdown there for purchase services, supplies, capital outlay, and other. Any questions on that? All right, if not, then we'll take a very quick look at the schedule of investments that the district held as of the end of January. Again, this does not include checking accounts. These are all investment accounts. But that being said, the investments are essentially liquid. They're cash equivalents. They're all in the form of governmental, cooperative, pooled investment funds that are designed to be liquid and safe. And you can see that I've broken it down between the 2 building and site funds, as well as the debt retirement fund and the general fund. So total investments as of January 31st, district-wide, totaled $14,637,972. In the lower half of that schedule, you can see there's, again, just an update of investment income year to date. Good news is, although we see interest rates, you know, month over month declining, of course, there was a Fed rate cut in December, and so that affects short-term rates almost immediately, at least with our investments. And so you see those rates continue to trend down, but I'd say they're, at this point, still higher than I would have expected maybe 6 months ago. And it, you know, certainly by all indications, it appears that, you know, there won't be a tremendous amount of rate cuts for the balance of the year unless something significant changes. That isn't on the radar at this point. So any questions on that?
Again, I would just thank you. I so appreciate the money management because there's over $400,000 in our building and site funds that you've added just by using the cash flow wisely, and over $100,000 to the general fund. And that makes a difference.
Every bit helps.
It does.
All right. Last item on my report this evening is to touch base on some bids that we'd like to award to contractors, and included in your packet is a memorandum that was prepared by Frederick Construction. And I don't plan to go through that in a lot of detail, but I'd like to take just a minute. I want to introduce a couple people from our team. I think you hear about our partners quite a bit, and I think it's a great opportunity to hear from them and put some faces with names, and then let them describe a little bit about the scope of work, the bid process, and that type of thing. Before I do that, I just want to give kind of a very high-level overview. And I just want to point out that there's a lot of work that goes into all of this, and by the time we have this recommendation, this is the culmination of, well, it's the culmination of almost 6 years worth of work at this point. It starts with overall assessment of the district's facilities that, we bring in experts from Frederick Construction and Tower Pinkster, and, Tower Pinkster takes a, very close look at all of the district's facilities, and they look at all the major systems, whether it's the roofs, the the boilers, the mechanical systems, lighting, electrical systems, building envelope, the quality of, our windows and all the, all those types of things, doorways. Not even, to not even touch on technology and that type of thing, but really just the physical needs of the district. They go through in detail. This was really kind of started with the 2014 bond, but, we knew that, the bond at that time was going to be pretty limited in scope, so it was kind of a limited assessment. As we prepared for the bonds that were approved in 2020, it was a far more intensive process. Which, just again, and from a very high level, the architects and working with our construction managers really look at all those major systems, and then they try to determine, is it more cost effective to renovate what we have or to start from scratch and build a new building? And so, there's a lot of work that goes into that. There's also a component of getting feedback and ideas from people all across the district, whether, really from every employee group, every interested party within the district has an opportunity to kind of weigh in on how things are working and what we'd like, what we'd love and all that kind of stuff. So that process was, completed in preparation for the 2020 bond issue. And we're going through the process now of updating that again, and that work is heavily underway. So, and I don't want to go too deep into that, just I wanted to provide that little bit of background. But at this point, I'd like to introduce a few people that are here. First, we have Doug Milburn with Tower Pinkster. And Doug's been working with the district for, gosh, I don't know how many, number of years now, and he's our kind of day-to-day lead, and, but also part of a much larger team that kind of touches on every discipline. So please meet Doug Milburn. And then also we have Chad Kandow, who's our project superintendent with Frederick Construction, as well as Mike Frederick. And so what I'd like to do is just kind of open it up to Chad and Mike to kind of walk through the process that's, that's behind the recommendations that are in here, and give everybody kind of a chance to ask some questions and get comfortable with the process before we move to the later portion of the meeting where we're going to ask for contracts to be awarded to our successful bidders. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mike and Chad.
My pleasure. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate the introduction. So a lot of you might ask, what do we do? What's our role here with this team within the district? Our company works really closely with all the key folks in the district to develop and work with Tower as well to develop a master plan of facility studies. So they come in, they look at your buildings, they bring their engineers in, they develop this giant list of things, of improvements that need to be done. They rate them as, 1 through 10, 1 through 50, 1 through 200, depending on, is it doors, is it windows? You have a lot of square footage, you have a lot of buildings, you have a lot of moving parts, and we never have enough money to take care of all the needs within the district. So we need to rate them. So we've done that over the last, probably 6 to 10 years, and that is a living document, and we continually update that for you folks. We then take that list and we try to apply budget numbers to it and try to forecast inflation and present that to the group so you folks can make an intelligent decision on where you'd like to spend your money. Once that's determined, and that's many, 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 many meetings, once that's determined, then and approved through the various committees and the administration, Tower then jumps into what we call schematic design, which is the first step in designing the repairs and improvements. A lot of meetings with the same stakeholders, a lot of conversations back and forth. We work then again to develop a second budget, which is your SD budget. We do a double check, make sure that we're all on the same page, it makes sense, it's within your ability to pay for, and we're not overspending on certain items and then neglecting other things that we know still needs to be accomplished. Once we get through that process, we move into what they call the design development phase, which is a much deeper design process, a lot more details, starts to bring out doorways, openings, equipment selections, things of that nature. We present that back to the group. Once we get the nod and agreement from the entire group, we rebudget it again. Let's make sure that the numbers make sense. Once they do, we get into construction documents. That is where the folks at Tower identify very specific model numbers, colors, ceiling layout, patterns, things of that nature. We budget it one more time. Everything looks good, then we get the blessing by the administration. We take those documents that Tower prepares, and this is Chad Kandow. He's our senior project manager. Chad is the genius, the mad genius behind a lot of things that happen in this district that for the services that our company provides. Chad takes those drawings and the specifications that Tower develops, and we create what we call a project manual, and we break down specific disciplines, painting or demolition, mechanical, electrical, and we get very specific. Our company gets very specific on roles, responsibilities, work hours, background checks. We create what we call the construction manager's project manual. Pretty thick manual, a lot of reading. If you really want to get super bored, we're happy to share a copy of that with you. But it's the Bible. It's what we expect from the contractor. It's what we hold them to during the construction process. We establish bid dates, mandatory walkthroughs. We like to make sure your contractors that work for you actually come to the buildings, look at the project, look at the plans, and try to help us identify things that maybe we have missed, because we're all humans. We're not perfect. There are certain things that are always missed, little things, and we try to vet them through our partners, and they generate requests for information. Through that process, we respond. Sometimes it's an engineering question, sometimes it's a coordination question for us. We get to bid day, we receive the bids. Hopefully we have 8 or 9 bids in each category. That's our goal. Sometimes we don't, but we always try to find and have the right contractors. They're going to bring the right people into the district, give you quality work, because no matter what we do at the end of the day, it's always an expensive endeavor to renovate or build new. So it's important to have the right people in the district doing the work for the district that will stand behind their product. We receive bids. We do post-bid interviews. That's a lot of hours, either virtual or face-to-face, where we qualify. We ask a lot of questions. We qualify the bidders, qualify their bids. And in this case, you'll see in your packets that you received where we're in what we call Series 3 now, which is the 3rd series of your bond rollout. And you'll see in this particular series, this release 1 in Series 3, you'll see where I think we had 4 bidders that had to rescind their bids because their paperwork was either incomplete or they made a mistake preparing their bid and the dollars didn't make sense. Sometimes we can immediately know that when we have a public opening, and so when we're reading the numbers and you've got 5 bidders and one bidder is $500,000 lower than the next bidder, you know, it tells you there's probably a problem there. So we really work hard prior to requesting an award from the board. We work very hard to make sure that, once again, the bidder understands what they're supposed to do, they're financially capable of doing it, and they have the manpower. That's been a big issue, especially this last summer. A lot of manpower issues. There was well over 250 open calls for electricians. So it caused a lot of problems in the industry of getting to the finish line. But we got there. That's a good thing. Once the post-bid interview process is complete, Chad prepares a recommendation, sends it over to Steve for his review, and then obviously there's conversation with the board and Kevin to make sure that we're all in agreement of how to move forward. You know, from there we move into construction. Chad takes the major role of that. We're going to let him speak to that in a minute. But our focus during construction is safety, because your buildings are never empty. So that's the number one role, is making sure that wherever we're working, we don't have band there, we don't have choir there, we don't have kids there, we don't have, there's as you know, there's so much going on in your building. So safety is the number one criteria. Number 2 would be schedule and quality of work. That's always second and third. And then as we get through it, we'll discover things that we weren't aware of. You pull down a ceiling, you might find some things that need to be corrected to satisfy the fire marshal or the building inspector. We bring that recommendation back to the district and come to a resolution and make the repairs. And then at the end of the improvement, Chad does a walkthrough. We try to do a work list prior to asking Tower to do their punch list, because there's always open items that didn't get completed. Some of it is just nature, part of the process, and some of it is we're all a bunch of humans and we miss things. So at the end of the day, that's a real quick oversight of our role. We try to follow up every year with a 1-year anniversary walkthrough to make sure if things are still functioning correctly, or if you've got a door that has failed, you got a warranty, let's get it replaced, or hey, we've had in the past equipment issues to where, especially during COVID, they would show up, they might not have the right components in it because they were having supply chain issues. So we work through all of that on behalf of the district and make sure that your tax dollars are spent very wisely and that you have, 20 to 30 to 40-year solutions in some cases, because we know every dollar we spend is very valuable. And, I've had fortunate to have my 2 daughters in the district. My granddaughters went to the district for a bit. We're a taxpayer of the district. So it's important to me, and it's important to my wife, to make sure that you get value. The taxpayers get value, because that's what it's about. You want them to be satisfied that they spent their money wisely. So we've built trust. We've built trust with the architect. We're very thankful that they're part of this, and we're very thankful that you allow us to provide construction services to the district. So I'm going to turn this over to Chad. Thank you for your time. If you have some questions when he's done, ask us. We're happy to be part of this.
Well, I don't have a whole lot to add to that. Mike explained the process pretty well. Your award recommendation, I always take a little bit of time to, part of what Mike said with the construction manual, one of the main drivers in that is writing bid packages, which defines the scope of work for each contractor so that we don't get overlap and double spends and all that kind of stuff. So what I do with that is, hey, this bid package, 9.2, I explain what that is. I explain what their scope of work is at a real high level, which is basically what I'm going to just reiterate right now real quick, is just what the projects look like this summer. It's basically what we did at the elementaries last summer when we were here in March, I believe, getting an award to do the elementaries. being this is the third series of the bond, we've now went in and done all the mechanical upgrades, all the electrical upgrades, and this is getting to some of those finishes that are very much needed and the stuff that you actually see. So it's big impact type stuff. Flooring, what we'll be doing at the high school is all new flooring throughout the whole building, with the exception of obviously like the gymnasium, but all the classrooms, all the hallways. Some of it we've done in the upper level, but the whole lower level is all going to be brand new, and then the hallways upstairs. That's a huge undertaking. That's a lot of square footage, so we're splitting that into 2 phases. So, and by phases, I mean we only have 8.5 to 9 weeks to do this work, and from taking the floors out to putting new stuff in, it takes all of that plus some. So we're going to be looking at doing all the classrooms on the lower level this summer, and the hallways upstairs, and then the following summer we would reverse and come and do the corridors. So it's a 2-part process. The other major renovation portion of work that's happening this summer is a remodel or refresh of all the bathrooms. So you're in all the group bathrooms, the group bathrooms that, and when I mean group, I mean the multiple fixture bathrooms that are around the gymnasium or in the hallways, and even the single-use bathrooms will all get a refresh, which would be, new tile, with kids and some of the things they like to play with now. We're going to remove the acoustical ceilings, which you can remove and put stuff up there and hide it. So we're going to put gypsum ceilings in, so they can't do that anymore. We're going to put vape detectors in all the restrooms, all new fixtures, all new partitions that are much more durable, that are scratch resistant. So that's essentially the general scope at all the buildings. We're going to also do that at the middle school. And at the middle school, the bathrooms there are relatively new. So we're not doing a complete refresh on them. We're changing out the partitions because some of them are scratched up. We are doing the hard lid ceilings, but the tile that's in there is in very good shape, and it was just done in the less than 10 years. So still very up to date and modern looking and stuff like that. So, but it's a flooring project throughout the whole middle school as well. So what we'll do there is take the the western half of the building and do that first, and then we'll flip-flop and we'll do the eastern half in next summer. And part of that is to juggle summer school and sports camps and all that kind of stuff. And then last year we were at Sunset. We did half the building, which was on the part of the old end, but also the newer end of Sunset, so on the western side of Sunset. We did that half. This year we'll be on the eastern side, up in the 100 Hall. Sunset had the flooring replaced in 2019, so we're not doing the classrooms, but we are doing the hallways. So it's the hallways, and then there's, if anybody's been in Sunset, you have that goofy bathroom that has the pass-throughs. That's all going to be, all the walls come down in there, and it gets completely rebuilt. So it's quite the project. And then gymnasium paint, we're painting the walls here in the middle school gymnasium, painting the ceiling and walls in Sunset, and the cafeteria ceiling, and some new lighting in there as well. So that's about the gist of what projects are. The budgeted value that we had was about 4.6, I think is what we budgeted. It's on the sheet in front of you. It's the black number at the bottom of all the, and I did print out new ones that show what the balance is, but it's 4 point something. I forget what the number is off the top of my head.
$4,259,282.
Yeah, and we came in after all the bids were received, and when we went through and vetted that second time and found, hey, so-and-so missed this chunk of work in there, so, we want to disqualify them or what, just because they had an incomplete bid. We are about 9% under budget, so we came in about $400,000 under our 4.2 or whatever it was. So, which is
We've got about 9 weeks to do all of that.
Yeah.
You've got to be very organized. The material has to be on hand.
Yep.
You have to have dedicated resources. You'll probably see, if I had to guess, 50 to 100 workers, depending on the ebbs and flows of the project.
Yeah. Yep. It's a massive undertaking, but it's been thought through, talked with all the contractors, some of them that we've utilized in the past, and built new relationships with people that we haven't used, where bigger companies from the Lansing area that are specialized in floor removals and stuff like that, we've kind of sat down with them and looked at how do we attack this much floor, and what's, how do we know we can, successfully hit the finish line each summer, so that we're not wondering how are we going to open school up. And it always comes down to the wire, but there's a lot of thought to get there. So one last thing I'll just mention too is part of the 2020 bond was furniture, some new furniture for the district. So it's not all of what may be done or what was originally thought of, but right now, this summer, what happens is all new chairs, and some of the chairs that are desk combos, you have a lot of them at the high school, all of it's new, and that's to work and function with all the new floors, so we don't damage the floors with the wrong slides on the bottom of the chairs. We're not scratching stuff up, so there's a significant amount of furniture that's going to be coming into the building, and that happens for all 5 buildings. So.
And just a quick note, there'd be a separate approval for those expenditures coming.
Yep.
And I'd just like to add too, I can't emphasize enough just how short that window is to get all that work done. And I think about, a few renovations I've been trying to get done at home that are going on a year now, and it's ridiculous. And the amount of work that both Tower and Frederick put into the due diligence of making sure that we've got good contractors and that, everybody understands the scope and how easily one contractor getting off schedule affects everybody else. I cannot thank our partners enough for what they do to make sure that all that happens. It's never as smooth as you'd want it to be, but it could be so much worse than it is. And, again, it's not an exaggeration to say if not for them, we would not have been able to open the buildings on time this fall. And you see that happen every year where projects go sideways for any number of different reasons. And, I just appreciate the work that they do to try to avoid all those headaches as much as possible.
It's truly a team effort between, Tower and Vicksburg schools. With Dewey helps immensely with the coordination of everything, and our team and the contractors. As you do these projects, we've developed relationships, like I said, with new people. We push on people when they need to be pushed on. I've written lots of really pointed letters with pretty specific demands, and they always come through. And I can tell you that your district is very well respected in the contracting world. There is contractors that will only bid this school district for work. They will not bid other districts, and it's just because of the partnership where they know that, we all got each other's back, because it's a 9-week blitz, so. Yep.
I have a couple questions for you. One is, can you give us the duration of time you've had a relationship with this school district? It's been fairly long for both Tower Pinkster and for Frederick.
Yeah, I started with Frederick Construction in 2017. I'm originally from up in northern Michigan, about 35 miles north of a town called Alpena, if you know where that is. Prior to that, in my career, I've done construction all over the country. I worked for very large construction companies that specialized in geotechnical construction, so a lot of bridge building and pier foundations and stuff. And then I moved, and that kept me on the road for 15 years. And I took a job that got me back home. Wasn't really liking that place where I was working, and it just so happened that the stars aligned, and I met Mike and the team at Frederick Construction, and I've been super happy. Couldn't be more happy to have found them. It's like a family, and I really appreciate working for them. And what was really neat about this is I've always been given a set of plans, go out and build this, fix this, do whatever. This, to be involved with you guys from the beginning of the dreaming of it to the end, is something that was new to me 5 years, 6 years ago from a construction standpoint. I've always been on the building end of it. To get through the design stuff has been a really fun reward of to the career I have, and I much appreciate that.
So I'm a little older than Chad. So in 2019, no, what was it? Was it 2019? Excuse me. Yeah, 1919. Thank you very much. I would say 1990 does that make sense? About 1990, we did, even prior to that with another company, I did the addition for the gymnasium here and the classrooms and renovated this space. We've done the additions at Indian. I didn't do Toby, I did Indian. We were very fortunate enough to do your band choir addition. We built your stadium, and I've been in business long enough to put a second layer of turf on that stadium now, which, you know, that's a blessing, I guess, right? You've been in business that long. So of our 34 years in business, I think we've probably worked for this district most of that time, off and on. It's been, you know, I was a Fulton Elementary student. Yeah, that's going back, isn't it, now?
Yeah, you're a lifer.
Yeah, so, you know, it's really, you know, it's almost kind of a homecoming every time I get back into one of the buildings and figure out what mayhem we caused in a tunnel or around the corner. Or, but they never asked me to leave. I did graduate, so anyhow. But it's been a good relationship. We've learned a lot working for the district, and you know, we find that you folks are very fair, and that's another reason contractors are very excited about bidding your work here at Vicksburg Community Schools, is because they know the school district is fair. They understand that there are things they'll find that are unforeseen, and they know that we'll work with them if it's a legitimate additional cost. We'll work with them to make the appropriate recommendation. So.
My second question is dealing with the format of how we've done the work. You've done this bond issue now, we're coming up on the 6th year. You know, you've seen your construction time get shorter and shorter and shorter, you know, with a calendar year. Does that structure make sense to you from a building standpoint? You've done other bigger projects, you know, adding gymnasiums and things that may have taken longer than, you know, a 9-week window. I mean, does that format make sense to you to do a bond in that way so that we're doing pieces of what needs to be done?
I think that first of all, K-12 is a complete different animal, and when you're trying to jam everything into a 9-week window, it never makes sense. But it is what it is. When it comes to multi-year bonds, I think you're on the right path. I agree with that because most of what we've done is interior improvements in what I consider still occupied buildings during the summer. So we have to be respectful of your space and your students and the safety of that. So we have yet to have, other than the stadium or say the band choir edition at the high school, which was you're able to do that work and safely separate that from public and students. So when it comes to interior renovations, smaller bites over multiple years is a successful work plan. You know, it's just not feasible. And we've had, you know, I'll give you an example. There were folks that, when we started renovating Sunset, there were folks that couldn't understand why we wouldn't just do the whole building over one summer. You know, 50,000 square feet, 60,000 square feet is a good number for a square footage for improvement, and that ties pretty good to your bond dollars. So yeah, I think it makes sense to me. You know, if we've got eventually the benefit of building a new building, you know, whatever that may be in the district, And if that new building is, we tend to deal in chunks of 6 to 10 million right now. But let's say if you're gonna do a new building that's 25 million, and it's located in a space that's safe to build year-round. If you can understand what I'm trying to say, it makes more sense to do it that way instead of doing a smaller chunk. But we just don't, we're not there yet, We're still doing interior renovations. So you gotta be careful. If you bite off more than you chew, then you can get done. And there are CMs that have done that. You don't get these buildings open. You don't get your state fire marshal and your state inspectors are very demanding, and they don't compromise what they want. And so you go into it knowing that you better hit the mark for your final inspection, or they're just not going to let you open. Yeah, I think it's a very successful formula, and I think the district has done well planning on, how big of a bite and over what period of time. So.
Did you want to speak to sort of an overall how Tower has been involved in this as well?
Yeah, I don't know the exact count, but I would say we definitely pushed in the high 20s and possibly low 30s in terms of number of years that we've been working with the district. I know that you're one of our longest serving clients, so it's been a
I want to
pleasure.
say at least since the 80s, it's been a long, long time. So, yeah.
I think my first experience with Tower in the district was 91.
Okay. Sure.
But you had been here prior to
Okay. That predates my time in the profession as a whole, so.
that. All right,
Does anybody have any questions about the bid packages or the process? I'm not a builder. I don't know. I was bragging about how it took me only 10 years to learn what EFS stood for.
Yeah.
So I really rely on a process that makes sense, and I really appreciate you laying out what that process is. This is your job, and I'm relying on you guys to do that job. And having a long-term relationship gives me a lot of confidence. We've done it before. You have a track record, and it's been excellent. And so I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that you enjoy it. I'm glad to know that you go all the way back to Fulton Elementary. That gives me a level of confidence as well. Does anybody else have any questions for them specifically?
I do. I'm Lisa Hostetler. I'm actually married to a builder, so a lot of what you're talking about makes sense. And I have to say, I really appreciate you speaking to you call them contractors or subcontractors, and the quality of work that they do, because I understand if they don't do quality work, you're not moving forward, and you're probably not going to get, the inspector is going to call you out, right? Which is going to delay things. But my question is, I know what it's like to just order material to build a house and then have the fluctuation in cost. The magnitude of this is 10, 100 times that. So your projects are being planned many, many months in advance, and there can be this fluctuation, right, in building materials. So how do you deal with that? You said you're under budget, right? So there is a little bit of a gap if things go up, and Steve, maybe you could speak to this too. How does that get managed? Do you have to cut something? Is there a fund somewhere that you can just add? Or how do you?
No, I mean, we deal with a fixed pool of dollars that are, generated by the bond. And I would say this is one of the areas where the approach that we use, where we're going back every 6 years and we plan out, we stage it, that gives us a little bit of flexibility. On the one hand, we're going to be dealing with price escalation or inflation over time. I think our team does a great job of forecasting that and anticipating it, but sometimes there are adjustments that are required. And I'd say the example here is when costs really kind of went through the roof around COVID and when we were dealing with supply chain issues and everything else, that, kind of the relief valve has been furniture. We've had to push back what we've been able to spend on furniture. So we're not completing the same amount of scope
Yep.
on the furniture replacements that we had initially planned or wanted to. But I also feel, I guess I would suggest that the fact that we go back, every so many years, it's been 6 years, that's not set in stone, it doesn't have to be. But that gives us a little bit of flexibility to make some course corrections as we go, as opposed to, okay, we've got one chance to go for this bond issue, we're gonna go for the biggest bond we can, and we know that that's gonna lock in our millage at a certain rate for the next 30 years. So it's kind of a moving target, and we have to kind of adjust. Now, when it comes to like this, we're pretty well locked in. The contractors have, committed to their, unit pricing, their labor
Okay.
rates and everything else.
So that's locked in.
So when we initially do COVID, we saw 25 to 30% increases in mechanical and electrical equipment. I consider that kind of a one-off, thank God, because there's no way we can forecast that. Or if we brought that budget to you folks, you'd look at us thinking we had horns growing out of our head. What are you doing? Why are you setting 30% aside? Because
Yeah.
you would just never do that. So typically, when Chad sets his budgets, we take the number and bump it and add a contingency.
Okay.
And every time we do, from schematic design through construction documents, we're updating that budget. Our goal is to go into bids with a 10% contingency,
Okay.
and then see that the bids come in better than what we thought, and then, which we just did, and realize the savings and put it back in the pot of money. That's the goal. We've yet to have to, and what I'm very happy with is we have not had to de-scope the cooling and electrical improvements. The budget that's been impacted the most has been furniture. And the majority of that is COVID inflation, I think.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of thought put into that, and I think the process works well.
And I think that's why I always point out that investment money that you have in those as well helps cover some of those inflationary.
Some of it,
Every
yeah.
little bit helps. Because that was $400,000. We're talking spending millions, but it's something.
Yeah, we look at it as if we can save you $1,000, we want to do that. If we can save you $500, we want to do that, right? That's another coat of paint somewhere. That's another door. We look real close at those numbers.
Okay.
Any other
Thank you.
questions?
I do have a comment.
Yeah.
Chad said something about the old bathrooms in Sunset, how crazy they were with the walk-in. I was one of the first students in that building when it was built. I thought those bathrooms were so cool. Because you went in and, you'd use your foot to get the water going. Oh, my God. But things change.
I thought the same thing the first time I saw it, until I heard all the stories of it, and then you see the paper towels all over the pass-throughs, and
Yeah.
if you've been in Sunset or Indian Lake or Toby recently, this school year, the bathrooms, that's what that bathroom will look like now. So they are very well received by everybody. I think everybody was very happy with the end result of what it looked like. Tower did an amazing design on it. I think you guys will be, the high school and the middle school elevates it from an age level a little bit, the design, and it'll be some very nice looking bathrooms that'll last a long time.
That's great.
Chad, is there when you look at over the last, 5, 6 years, a lot of these projects, any trends that you see when you look at change orders? I know sometimes those can be driven by the owner, sometimes acts of discovery, any color there?
We're very careful on what we do when we write their bid. When I write a bid package, it's as detailed as I can make it, but at the same time, I flirt on a line of, I want to spell out everything that they need to do, but I want to say it in a way that it doesn't set a hard black line so that there's room for hey, no, that means all of this, not just this, it's, so there's a way to write those. And, we've found lots of stuff that, sometimes pops up that you can't predict or see. Like Mike said, you tear the ceilings down. Change orders on a whole for everything that we've done through the mechanical and electrical upgrades typically we usually knock that contingency down to about 5% after DD budgeting, and we're about 2.5 to 3. So that's pretty good, really good actually in change orders and that's, attesting to their design is very thorough. And the buildings in general have been looked at by everybody in that process that shows that that's working. There's been things that we've added, minor things that, hey, since we're here, we should paint that. So it's all stuff that, goes through Steve, suggestions and whatnot, and Dewey. And sometimes it's, some owner requested things. There was, in this building, there was, I think, 4 or 5 partitions that used to be movable in these classrooms that you could take one large classroom and turn it into 2 smaller classrooms. And the decision was made, we were going to leave those, the ones that we had anticipated leaving, and then teachers saw the one that we did the previous year, and they all wanted hard walls, which was an add to the, but it was, you got the right people on it, and the beauty of that is, once they're under contract, there's a limit to, there's a set overhead and profit that they can only hit, and it's spelled all out in our manual and stuff like that. So it's not like bid day where you might pay 15% for something, you're only going to pay 10% on an overhead and profit on it. So, and they show you all the backup, so it's provable. So it's a very detailed process that controls all that cost.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just, I don't know if it's for Tamara, the master plan, could you send that out? Or is that online or where?
I don't know.
It is, so it is
Sorry.
not, no, that's fine. It is not. Yeah, I can follow up with you
Okay.
on that. That, as we said, that's in the process of being revised right now, but we can certainly send you what we've had in the past on that.
Thank you.
So we have action item later to approve this bid packages. I think these gentlemen would like to be able to get home and maybe get something to eat. And so if you have questions, you should ask them now while they're here. And then thank you very much for coming and for all the work that you've done. Is there any other questions? Because ask now, because we're going to take action items later, and we've got other presentations. So thank you, gentlemen, for coming, and really appreciate yeah.
Yes, thanks.
If no other questions, then next up on the agenda is our middle school field trip to Cedar Point. Allison.
Yes, in your board packet, every year we take our 8th graders.
You need the microphone.
After school dismisses, we take the 8th graders to Cedar Point. So we always have to use around this time to get the ball rolling. So you should have that in your board packet. It's going to be roughly about $125, and we do ask for donations, and we ask for scholarships for students who may not be able to attend due to the cost of it. So we make sure everybody who wants to go is able to go. We take about 3 charter buses. We've got those reserved right now just in case you do approve it. And then we will be leaving as soon as school gets out on June 9th will be our day. So school gets out on Friday, so June 9th, we come right back. Kids get here about 6 in the morning or so, and we take off, and we head to Sandusky for the day. So we're just looking to get that approved so we can continue.
Do you have any trouble with tardies on that day?
Not at all. Not at all.
Curious.
When we're leaving from the park.
Yeah, when we're leaving.
You said that you would take donations for that.
Yep.
Where should they be sent?
So, we could put it out to the general community, but in the permission slip letter that goes home with families, on the bottom, it lets parents know, like, if they want to send an extra, they can send an extra, or if parents need a scholarship, they can check that box, sort of thing. So we really have only ever asked, I guess, our families, if others would like to donate, you can just write a check to Vicksburg Community Schools, and we can put it into the Cedar Point funds for that as well.
So you'd stipulate in the note, this is what I want to put it in for, Cedar
Correct.
Point funds?
Correct, yep,
Thank you.
yeah.
Do
And
you
then-
anticipate, oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Do you anticipate a big need for scholarships?
I guess what do you consider big? We,
Well, how
we
many
do
students-
have, I mean, there's, it depends on who goes. We don't have, not all of the eighth graders end up going. It's about half.
Okay.
So we usually have about 100 to 125 students that go. And there's a sizable chunk that asks for some. They donate what they can, and then we help cover the rest of the cost. But there's a few families that need the whole thing covered as well. I wouldn't say it's a giant portion, but there are families in need that definitely can use the assistance.
So do you do fundraising?
Not
At
for the
all
Cedar
for
Point
that?
trip. Nope.
No,
Nope.
okay.
Yep.
Do
We
you
do our
have-
one and only fundraiser for the year, and that's walking the dogs. So
Okay.
some of that could be used towards some of that we do to help offset it a little bit from the 125 already.
Okay.
Do you have some families that will pay for their own student, but others as well?
The 3 years that I've been here that we've done it, yes, that happens.
That's
Where
great.
there'll be families that pay for their own child and donate another ticket.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions regarding that? And then the next item is to present on the middle school, and then you've got things projected here,
Yep,
so
so if you
I
wanna-
suspect we want to head to the front row here.
We'll just do it right there, if I see this, or do I need to be closer to it? And before you leave, if I could say it, please grab some snacks on the way out. So, yes, so there's some yummy desserts back there.
Oh, does it? Is that what's going on? I'm on the board. I thought it here.
We won't laugh.
I think we need new chairs.
The plan is to take the classroom chairs that are being discarded and moving into here. So we can get some. Yeah.
We're good?
We're good? Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for being here tonight. We do obviously have a presentation that we're gonna go through fairly quickly because it is 8 o'clock, but please stop us and ask questions if you have questions as we're going through. So tonight, it might help if I turn this on. Tonight, we're gonna kind of go over an overview of various things. A lot of it's gonna focus on our PLCs here at the middle school and some data and obviously some celebrations that we have. So to start off, the middle school was nominated again. You can see our plaque outside of the office doors by U.S. News for being one of the best middle schools in the state of Michigan. So typically you get it if you're in the top 40% for your MSTEP scores. If you look at that, we are actually ranked 230th out of more than 1,900 schools in the state. So that ranks us actually in about the top 12% of middle schools in the state of Michigan. So kudos to our amazing staff here at the middle school. We have a staff, as you're going to see throughout the presentation tonight, that works collaboratively with each other and for our students. PI, so Partners in Education, is a group that we started this year based off of the feedback from our parent perception surveys last year. They wanted a little bit more input and wanted to talk a little bit more about the things that were happening at the middle school. So at the beginning of the year, I put this out to our families and said, please sign up if you would like to be part of this. What days and times is your best availability? Offered some times during school, after school, evening, various days. Put it out there for a few weeks. We had about 15 parents say that they would be interested in joining it. So we kind of came up with a time that would be the best time for everybody to meet, that could meet. So we've been consistently meeting about once a month. The group has kind of gotten a little smaller and smaller, but in a little bit you're going to see some of the celebrations that have come out of that group. So we're excited that we have that going. We are fully air conditioned, so again, thank you to the community and to the board for our bonds and everything else that we are able to get with those. We had our Walking the Dogs walkathon in October, which we have every year. It's about a little over $11,000 that were donated, and that goes back to the students. So that goes back to the students in the form of different prizes that we give out, which you're going to see a little later too. Different things such as some of the funds to go towards the Cedar Point trip. We've got different funds for different departments when they ask for various needs. We've got money for them to use for their students and et cetera. And then we have a couple of staff that earned some pretty significant awards. Sawyer Duncan got the Meritorious Professional Service Award through the SHAPE conference, which he also helps lead every year. And Shannon Howard, one of our Spanish teachers, was the Michigan World Language Association Teacher of the Year, where she got recognized at the conference she attended and presented at earlier this year.
So our partners in education, a couple weeks ago, they hosted a sledding party, and they sent us those pictures. So the pictures on the right were the sledding parties over at, what's that park called off you have? Is it Prairie View Park?
Yes.
Yeah, over at Prairie View Park, they opened up one of their buildings they had there. So, and they had a fire going as well too. So those are some pictures from that event there that they sent us. On the left is not our kids, but we are planning a VMS glow dance. The kids are super excited for this one. It's been a while since we've had a middle school dance, so they're super excited. So that's going to be coming in April 25th from 6 to 8.
Yeah, and this group is really taking the lead on trying to get some more activities to get more families involved outside of school and getting our kids involved a little bit more with each other outside of other like sports and choir and band. And we also are able to take feedback back to this group. So I shared with them a rough outline of the parent perception surveys that we got back and showed them the information, where now we'll take that information and develop action plans, kind of share thoughts back out with them. One of the things, and going back to that perception survey, is we send it out every year. Every building sends them out. We get maybe 30 to 40 responses. So when I talked to our PI group about this, I said, we want to get more participation. So when we look at the data, we actually have a true representation of who we're looking at. And they're like, well, why don't you make it a competition? Maybe do X, Y, and Z. I was like, that is an amazing idea. So the teachers got really sick of me announcing every morning, all right, kids, we need about 10 more parents or 5 more. We ended up getting 259. We wanted 50% participation, which out of about 602 students, they have siblings, and so we needed 258 people to take the survey. So we kept going every day, kept announcing it, and then when we got to 259, it was the last day we ended up shutting it off. So we had a lot of, I'm like, okay, I'm tired of announcing this. Everyone's tired of hearing it. We've got a lot of data to sift through. Good thing we have AI. So anyway, so we had a lot of participation, but that was thanks to this group and the feedback, just giving us some simple ideas that we didn't think about. So we're super excited to have that partnership.
Allison,
yeah.
Is that survey online anywhere, or is that?
The perception surveys, we shut them down, I think it was in December. We had it open for 2 weeks, and it was in the newsletter, just like, hey, we're going to take it, and we sent it as a separate.
Yeah, I just didn't know if the results were.
No, so the results actually, we're going to talk a little bit about that and the plans for those. Yep.
So right here, Allison already touched on this. This is Shannon Howard on the left. She's the one who won the Teacher of the Year award for foreign language, and then on the right is Mr. Duncan with his wife and their baby. So that's the pictures of them.
So some of the celebrations and some of the things that we were talking about that our fundraiser money goes for are for our kids. So one of the things that we were doing is celebrating no failing grades. And we've done a couple different ones. The pie committee, for one of them, actually came in and popped 600 bags of popcorn, and I'm pretty sure we traumatized them because they will never come in and pop 600 bags of popcorn again. They laugh about it, like, we are not doing that again. But they came in for like 2 days, about 3 hours each day, and popped 600 bags of popcorn so we could get them out to the kids. So that was fun. And then another thing we did that was kind of cool is bingo, whole school. So we set up a Google Meet where all the classrooms could join. I was on a Google Meet in my office pulling the numbers so I could show them, and then the kids could kind of see each other. So when kids got bingo, they could unmute, the teachers would unmute their camera, and the kids would yell, and they'd go crazy. And then I would be on the thing saying, we've got a bingo! So we had to end up about 50 kids because we just kind of kept playing and kept playing. And they would come down to the office to claim their prize. So there's some of them with their bingo cards, and then we had buckets set up and the kids in line waiting to claim their prize. But it was just a fun, different thing where everyone could play, but still just kind of in their rooms and still see each other via technology. So that was one of the fun, kind of a fun thing that we got to do. So moving into our mission and vision, as a district, you know, you've seen this before, to maximize the success and potential of each student and staff member, and that students will graduate college and career ready. So at the middle school, how do we do this? We're not graduating kids, we're sending them to high school, but we are part of this mission and vision. So one of the major ways that we do it is through our PLC process. So in our PLC process, we've got 3 real big pillars: the focus on learning, building a collaborative culture, and then establishing that results orientation. So the first one is our focus on learning, which is guaranteeing that viable curriculum, the balanced and coherent assessment system, and the school-wide multi-tiered systems of instruction and supports. So each of our departments meet weekly, intentional meetings that they look at curriculum, data, and they plan for their next steps. And they plan for that different level of instruction that they might need to do. So we use what's called the tutorial process. Our tutorial process is a little different than the high school, but that's an opportunity for teachers to do some reteaching or some pre-teaching to students. We have what's called our student intervention team process, or SIT process for short, where once a month as a building we meet. They meet in grade levels so they can discuss shared students that might need the additional help either academically or behaviorally. And then we also have small group instruction that happens in the classroom on a daily basis. And we also have our math and reading ELO. So this is our additional supports for those students who need reading and math support daily, a little bit of additional help. So we've been working really hard the last couple of years on coming up with criteria for entering and exiting ELO. Kids used to look at it as, I'm in ELO, I'm never leaving, and I don't want to be in this. So we have made it a goal to try to get kids in and out in 9 weeks. Okay, you're in this for 9 weeks, we're going to see where you're at, we're going to then get you back into your elective class, might take you back out if we're seeing some different things. So reading this year, the amount of students that were in it after the first marking period, 4% exited. After the first marking period, we look at all the data. Again, we exit kids, but we also then add some more kids who might need that additional help. Second marking period, we exited 23% of the students that were in it. So it's working. Those kids that were in there for the 9 weeks, they got in there for 9 weeks, they exited. And now we've got a new group of students. Math, same sort of thing. We had 30% of our students who were in the math ELO exited the first marking period. Second marking period, 43% exited. So again, our goal is to get them in and out, get them the support that they need in a timely way and fashion, so then they can get back into their other electives. It's not a, I'm stuck in this forever. So that's just one more need of support that we have in place, that when our teachers meet, that's one of the things that they talk about. Should they be in ELO or not?
The fact that you emphasize exiting, does that help with the motivation of students? Because if I really want to sing in Mr. Morris's choir class, and I'm in an ELO, you'd have seen that happen where kids buckle down because they want to get back there and have that elective.
Yes, that is definitely a motivator. And now that we're really pushing 9 weeks. We're going to get you in and out in 9. We're going to try 9 weeks. And now being able to be very clear with our students.
Yeah.
This is the criteria you have to meet.
Right.
So let's set some goals. Let's figure out what you need to do to meet this by the end of 9
So
weeks.
there's some carrots and not just sticks.
Yes. Yeah. So again, continuing on with the theme of focus on learning, we have some other opportunities for our students.
So another thing is we partner with K-RISA for what's called a Career Connect. What you see pictured here is the mobile lab. So basically they have this big lab thing that they park in our parking lot for a few days, and I think we even brought it to Sunset, or Sunset came to us. I can't remember which way it is. Last year, what the kids were able to do, they would play around with some things and some robots and things. They were able to engrave water bottles with their initials on it. This year, I believe they made keychains with their names on it. So that's one thing. And 6th grade science classes went into this mobile lab. I'll just clear. I can just do this then. And then the next thing, this just happened recently. So this happened in 6th grade social studies class. We had Dawn Pinkum. I think I'm saying her last name correctly. Pinkums. Dawn Pinkham. She's from KRESA, and she works with Zello, and she does that career readiness stuff. She come in, she did a neat little lesson with our 6th grade kids in social studies, kind of a budgeting activity. So they got to learn what it's like to live in the real world and how unexpected costs may come up to us, and we got to figure out what we can cut, what we need to do. So that was a fun lesson. And then she's going to come in again, I want to say, is it later this week? Wednesday. Will be more of an introduction into what the Zello is, and for those of you who don't know, Zello is like a K-12 college and career readiness platform that the kids will continue to use throughout their middle school career.
Has this particular curriculum been reviewed by Mr. Stephen Voss or approved?
Yes.
He helps create the content.
Yes.
He provides the smart.
Yeah, the
Yes.
Smarties is the money.
Yep.
He's involved, okay.
But it's funny because I went in at the end of one of the classes and some kids were saying, "Man, life is terrible," because they just kept losing all their money because they spin this wheel thing, and it was very funny to see them. And then this is also real popular, and this is with our 8th graders. They go to My Career Quest. This is done at the Expo Center in Kalamazoo, kind of where the fairgrounds are. And what this is just an introduction to a lot of potential careers that they could do. So it really gets that career readiness piece started. And here's some pictures of some of our kids there, so they can do anything from construction stuff. I believe there's some police there, healthcare. So it's another really cool thing for our kids to do, and they do that in 8th grade.
And a lot of these ones that Joe was just talking about, Tatiana Curtis, give kudos to her because she helped set all this up for our students to be able to participate in those
Yes.
things. So, thank you, Tatiana.
Kudos, Tatiana.
Along the wall, you'll notice some items out here. We have our monuments from social studies. So every year, social studies departments do a monument contest where the kids can build a monument and they teach people about it. They write something about it, what it is, time period, and all of those things, and then they get to present them. The other objects are from one of our automation and robotics classes. So you can see the dog there, amazing. So normally they're just kind of a 4-wheeled moving car, I guess, without a ton of decorations on it. So some of our kids, there was a little bit of a different project this year, and they went all out. And we were pretty sad because we had 3 snow days in a row when they were supposed to walk them
Yes.
through the hallway and present them. So they didn't get the chance, so they were kind of bummed about it. So we're like, we're gonna put some of them out at the board meeting. It's okay, don't worry. We're not just gonna disassemble this because this is amazing. So our kids really do work hard and have pride in what they're doing every day through their classes. So another one, Minds in Motion. This is a class that started last year. Chris Loxonen teaches it, and we're thankful to have her back this year. She comes in just for 3rd hour. She comes in just for 3rd hour and teaches Mind in Motion. So this class is pretty unique because it's a writing course, but they do a lot of research. So to get them kick-started, they actually learn about our village. So she takes them on walking tours. She goes to the historic village. They go to Gilbert and Ivy, and they do a lesson there. They go to Zoja, and they got to make chapstick and learn about the process of that, Zoja Beauty. They did some things with bubbles, and they were trying to, on our sign there, blow the bubbles and make them hard, and just doing some different experiments that they had learned through some of these other entrepreneurs in the community. Mackenzie's Bakery is another partner that they go to. So the kids really get to explore our village while being in school and learning more about the history of it. And then that's more of a springboard for them to come up with a topic to research and for them to write about. So their end product is a research project that they are invested in, that they want to know more about, and then they write about it and present it. So just another kind of cool class that we have for the kids, and that community partnership that we have is really cool. So I talked a little bit about this already with that collective responsibility with our staff. So having that shared vision, mission, values, and goals. We have high-performing collaborative teams, and we have that very intentional collaboration within those teams. So one of our big goal, the building instructional goal, is using formative assessments. So formative assessments are just a quick test or assessment or quiz that you might give a student to see if they got the content for that day. So those formative assessments, we base those on learning targets. So the teachers might write up on the board, this is what we're learning for the day. At the end, they might give the kids something quickly to say, did they get it or did they not? So our big goal has been focused around that. And within that big goal, again, we continue learning about learning targets. FAME is called Formative Assessments for Michigan Educators. A lot of our staff have been trained in that, but there's about half that haven't yet. So we're continuing that process of getting everybody trained in that to help reach this goal. And we've been doing some instructional rounds. So on Friday, homecoming day, coming off of a snow day, we had the opportunity to hold part of a middle school, elementary level conference in our building. So we had about 13, I think it was, other Michigan principals from around Michigan, from Lapeer, we had Muskegon, we had Gull Lake, oh geez, I'm forgetting, Forest Hills. So we had a variety of principals from other districts come in, and they were here for about an hour and 45 minutes, and they got to brag about our building and our staff and the amazing things that they're doing, and then they got to go into the classrooms and kind of see some of this that we've been working on in action. And then we came back together and they gave us some feedback. So some of the things that they shared with us, they're like, learning was directly related to the learning target. They said learning targets were part of the lesson and repeated throughout. Teacher questioning and student talk was directly related to the learning target. So these are outsiders who have been in our building for an hour and 45 minutes and were able to see the work that's being done, which was awesome. They also commented that student behavior was positive, engaged, respectful. They said strong student to teacher relationships and respectful student to student relationships. And they were geeked about our school spirit. Again, it was homecoming. So I purposely planned a couple of the greeters to greet them that had the wigs and all the crazy stuff on. So these two boys, it was really cute. They, oh, are you here for the conference? Where are you from? And they're walking down the hall in tutus and huge wigs. And it was fun. So, so we've had, the point I guess is we've had outsiders coming in for just an hour and 45 minutes and seeing the amazing work that our teachers are doing every day. And they could point it out. So moving into the results orientation.
Yeah, so this really is just a continuation of our PLC work that we've been doing. So that data mindset that we have in data management. Up there, what you get pictured is action to improve results. And what you see there is our attendance board. If you didn't notice, this is right outside of our office. Okay? And what this is our goal is typically to be around 83% of our student population to have 2 or less days absent in 1 month time. Full disclosure, I can't read the numbers on those things because my eyes are terrible, but we were close the last month. I think we were 81%. So we've put a big emphasis on our attendance this year. Every Monday morning we have a sitting meeting with myself, Allison, Tatiana, our school counselor, and Corey Hinger, our behavior specialist. And every week we run our 2 or more absence report, and we go through that list and we look for names that this person's been on here a couple weeks in a row now. Maybe we need to reach out to home, reach out to this kid, see if there's something we can do to develop a relationship and try to figure out why we're missing so much school. So that's been a general focus for us. And then right here I have our average daily attendance dating back from 2019-20 school year through last year's daily attendance average. So you can see pre-COVID we had about 96.48% daily attendance. And then obviously we saw that dip during COVID, and we're slowly starting to get ourselves back up to those pre-COVID numbers with these efforts that we've been putting forth.
And some of that, like we had talked about, those rewards, we're doing some for those students who are missing only 2 days or less a month. They get to go into a monthly drawing. We pull 2 names. They get to come down and pick a prize. So just a little incentive for them. So all this kind of leads into SEL, which you've heard about, that social emotional learning piece. We're talking about absences, and it's not always students are out because they're sick, especially in middle school. We need to get to the root cause. So it's not that they're missing 2 days a week and we just need them here, we want them here because they're missing their content. We want to know why. Why are you missing the 2 days a week? Is it because you don't have a connection with somebody here? Is it because you don't feel like you have a friend here? What is it? So that's why we look at those every week. And if we have students on there that are missing 2 or more days, multiple weeks in a row, we know we need to do some digging. We need to reach out to the families. We need to reach out to the students. And we've had some really great conversations because of that. So looking at SEL, we talk that it's not just about students. It's about our teachers as well. We talk about it's within the classroom, within the school, it's with our families and that partnership, and it's within our communities. So again, as you saw earlier, we're trying to build those relationships with the communities. our families by having the pie and trying to get more input from our families on those. Again, within our school, that's the culture that we create here, and then the teachers in their classrooms, and what does that climate look like as well. So some of the ways that we are doing those things. Staff wellness. So this is a picture kind of from the beginning of the year. We like to play a little fantasy football, and we did, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. What is this called? We did, I don't know. Anyway, we did it to rank who gets to choose first, who gets to pick their fantasy football players first. So the staff had to go down the draft.
Draft,
But
yes.
no, it was not just the draft.
We called it
the combine. It was a combine.
The draft combine.
So we did the draft combine. So staff had to do a little bit of running. They had to do some bag tossing, and so we had some fun doing that. So we got to build in some of those fun things as we go as well. Through one of the grants that Sawyer got, like we had talked earlier about the Building Healthy Communities, he got pedometers for everybody. So he's going to get those passed out in February, where we're going to do a step challenge. In March, we're planning on doing a water challenge, and we're going to record like who's drinking the most water. And our hope is that a lot of our staff will join the Hardy Hustle when that comes up. So we're gonna try to get everyone ready for that. We are also, one of the things that we've gotten through some of the grants was more pickleball sets. And I've never played, but I think I'm the biggest pickleball fan there is, and I've never played it, but I've got a set. But we're gonna try intramurals. So we're gonna have some staff pickleball and badminton intramurals after school that we can come in and play, and people can cheer each other on. So I am really excited about that. I will be the one out there with the headband. So staff wellness is huge. Another thing that we've talked about, when we talked about these perception surveys that had gone out, the student survey, parent survey, and staff survey have all gone out. This slide on the left, I'll read it because it is pretty small, is showing one of the areas that we need to grow in. And then on the right is one of our strongest strengths from what the students said. So one of the lowest things that they said is, in my school, students help each other even if they are not friends. So the disagree and strongly disagree are the green and the purple. So you can see it's kind of a big wedge. It's a little over a quarter of our students think that they don't help each other out just because they're not friends. So to me, that's a problem. That's something we need to work on. However, they do say that their school gives them multiple assessments to check my understanding of what was taught. That goes right back to what we were saying with the formative assessments. So even our kids see it. So good job. So Rick, to your point earlier, you asked about the results. So today actually was one of the first opportunities that we had as a staff. Thank you to Joe and Matt Brussi for leading that, because I was at a different meeting. The staff looked at all the results. We compiled some of it via AI because, again, we had 259 parents respond. So they looked at some of our areas of strength and a couple of our opportunities for growth and came up with some action steps of what we can do to address those. So then our next steps are going to be, as a team, smaller team, look at those, and then we're going to communicate some of those out in the newsletters to parents to say, here's where we were with our parent survey. Here's where some of the results and from the students, and here's what we're going to do to address it. So that's going to be coming probably the end of February, beginning of March. Yep. Yep. As we look at what I talked about with the students, how they feel like they don't help each other, Positivity Project is something that we'd use to kind of help with that. And these are just different character traits, and it changes each week, that we talk about throughout the year. It's just the last 15 minutes of the day where there's quick little slides, and as a building whole, we talk about these together. So there are things like integrity, enthusiasm, love, kindness, social intelligence, gratitude, optimism, humor, purpose, self-control. So a big scope of different character traits that we hope that our students are understanding and that they can take then into their daily lives to build some of that empathy for others. Moving on to the parent survey. So the parent survey, again, the left-hand side is our opportunity for growth, and the right side was one of the areas that they said we were the strongest in. So a big opportunity for growth is that they say bullying is not tolerated in our school. So again, if you look at the strongly disagree and disagree, that's the purple and the green, it's over a quarter-ish or so of parents feel that bullying is tolerated. So we obviously need to work on that. And students and families are treated with respect. That's one of the biggest celebrations that came out of that parent survey.
And then as far as the area for growth that came up in our staff meeting today is a lot of the times when these things are happening, we're not always informed of what's happening until it gets to the point where it's bad. So communicating out how these things can be reported. All of our kids in the building know this, that we have this form that's linked in their Google Classroom of their community circles class where they do that positivity project. There's a form that's linked in there, and we call it just basically the request to talk to somebody form. So with this form, they can fill it out. They can ask to talk to myself, Allison, Tatiana, or Corey. Just if they want to report anything. Or they can just simply say, I don't want to talk to any of y'all, but this is what's happening in the building right now. So that's one thing that we have, and just kind of communicating that out with parents so they're aware that if their kid comes home and they're saying, this kid's doing this and that to me, did you report it? No? Okay, well, get your Chromebook out. Let's sit down. Let's fill this form out so somebody in the office can address it first thing in the morning.
And something we know about middle school students is they don't want to be seen going and talking to the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to be like, so-and-so just did this to me, or so-and-so did that to me. So this form is truly,
Anonymous.
we're on our Chromebooks
Yeah.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They can get on their Chromebook at any time of the day, fill it out, and just be sitting at their seat. And no one knows any different.
And we get kids who fill it out over the weekend.
Yep.
It'll be the weekend. It'll be a Saturday. All of a sudden we get an email. Somebody's requested something. So we know that this is important to that kid. So we need to get them Monday morning and figure out, hey, what's going on? Tell me what's happening.
And it's very helpful. We've gotten over 475
Yes.
or so responses just this year,
Yes.
up until now.
Mhm.
Kids use it, so.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Okay. Behavior academies. This comes from a book study, and I do have the book right here, that a group of us did over the summer. It was myself, Allison, Tatiana again, Corey Hinger, the behavior specialist, Amy Dunn, and Molly Beardsley. I think that's everybody, correct?
Allison Brussey, but she's from.
Yeah, Allison Brussey. That's right. Sorry, Allison Brussey. And basically, as I'm sure you guys are probably aware, middle schoolers can come up with really creative ways to be disruptive throughout the day. So what this book study was about was we can't always just consequence away these behaviors. Some of these kids, they need to be taught skills on how to properly act in the classroom, or if you feel the urge to blurt out, what can you do? So that's what this book was about, and these are the different academies that are offered in here. We have the Hands-Off Academy, the Check-In, Check-Out, Civility Academy, Organizational Skills, Social Skills, Upstander, Motivational, and Emotional. The two I got highlighted in yellow, which apparently are not showing up too well on the screen, were the Check-In, Check-Out Academy and the Organizational Skills Academy. We've already done the Check-In, Check-Out Academy. That's for the kids who have a lot of disruptions in classrooms. They got multiple minor infractions in classrooms, blurting out, being disruptive in class. And then Organizational Skills Academy, that kind of speaks for itself. So what we do is we ask for teacher recommendations. They recommend them, and then we'll also look at referrals and then nominate kids for these academies. Probably not surprising, all of our recommendations for the Organizational Skills Academy came from middle school boys. So it's all boys in those two groups that we have today, and Tatiana and Corey do those two groups. So basically how these things look, you have your initial session, which is just going over what the purpose of it is, and then each preceding lesson teaches a specific skill that the kid can then bring into the classroom to help them be a little bit more successful in the classroom, and then there's an exit requirement that the kids have to show at the end of the academy. So this is the one that we've already done. It's the Check-In, Check-Out Academy. So there's a description, the entrance criteria, and what the exit criteria looks like. I'm not going to read through all of those, but I can't remember the exact number of kids we had, but we had our 6th and 7th graders who did it. Entering the academy, they had a total of 18 referrals, I believe, for classroom, 19 referrals for classroom disruptions, and that was through 41 school days. And then after they've exited, that's 47 school days, or after it started, there's only been 8 from this group of kids. So that kind of reduced their disruption referrals in the classroom by 58%.
Joe, when do they do this work?
Okay, yeah, I should probably clarify that. That community circle time that we talked about, so we're not pulling them out of any of their core classes or elective classes. They do it the last 20 minutes of the day where it's community circles, and they get pulled once a week, and they come down to usually that side room over there in the library. So we're not pulling them out of their core classes. They're coming down during that community circle time. here is our VMS major violations discipline data. So in black we have last school year, and then in red we have the current school year through just semester 1. So on the left we have our ASBPs. That stands for our After School Behavior Program, which is essentially a 2-hour detention. Last year in the first semester we had 37. This year we had 31. And then we have suspension days, so the number of suspension days that we have passed out. So through the first semester last year, there was 127 suspension days that were passed out, whether it be in school or out of school. And so far this year, we had 97. So suspension days are reduced by 23%, and the ASBPs were reduced by 16% so far this year. This is still me. Okay, so now we're going to start looking at some of our state testing data. So the first few slides, we're going to talk about comparing us to schools that are close to Vicksburg Middle School. You see some familiar schools: Plainwell, Constantine, Three Rivers, Gull Lake, the Portage Middle Schools. So first, we have our ELA M-STEP results. It's shown by over a 3-year course. Last year, we were at 49%. Compared to schools close to us was at 41%. Sorry, my eyes are horrible, so I have to get really close to the screen to see it. So we did go down a little bit from the previous year to this year, but we're going to see another slide that's going to show where we feel that trend's changing. We're going to see some increase in that this year. And again, the math, we were at 43%. Our average of similar schools close to us by distance was at 29%. Again, we were a little bit down from last year, but again, we have some more data points so far this year that shows we should be improving this year.
So PSAT, this is the data from our current 9th graders. So in the fall of 2023, College Board went to an online platform for PSAT. Our students have never taken it online. They were offering for schools to kind of do a pre-test and kind of see how it goes as a trial run. So we decided, let's do this, let's give them some practice. We made it a day where they went to the high school where we kind of sat down and made it a legit testing environment. So this is the first time, again, these students, this was in, I think, October, early October. So they're fresh 8th graders. They didn't even have all 8th grade yet. So in the beginning of their 8th grade year, they took the PSAT for the first time ever online. The top number up here is us. So we had a score of 786. This is also us, it's district, but we're the only middle school in our district. So again, it's 786. The state average was 739, and all testers were 767. So typically the schools that have taken this are some of those higher performing schools that take this and have that ability to have all their students take it. So as you can see, our scores were a little low at 786, but we were higher than the state and all the testers that ended up taking this PSAT in the fall. So then in the spring, they got to take it where it counted. So the fall was more of a practice. They didn't count towards anything. This top number, we scored an average of 839. So it went from a 786 to an 839 over the course of the year. So again, these top two are us, 839. The state public schools only, 820. The state all schools, 821. US, 831. And then global, sorry, this thing keeps popping up at the bottom, was 833. So even out of all of that data, we still tested higher than the average for our students. Again, this is our current 9th graders. Our 8th graders, this year we did not do the practice test, so they won't take the PSAT until April. So we were pleased with that increase of data. Another big celebration point, so we use STAR, which is our universal screener for math and reading. All of our students get tested 4 times a year. We look at that data to see who might need to be placed in ELO, who might need some of that additional support. And last winter, in STAR reading, our students had a 37.8% chance of being M-STEP ready. So we wanted to increase that, and we tried to increase it in numbers that we're going to be able to attain. So we said about 40, we wanted it to be like 40.8% by this time this year. So in a year, we wanted to grow that much. If you look at that number on the bottom, it went from 37.8% to 68.3% of our students being M-STEP ready in 1 year. Normally, we get about a 6% increase, but we got almost a 30% increase.
That's the same cohort?
Same cohort. No, I'm sorry, that's our entire building. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th grade averaged.
Okay.
So, and it was from when they were 5th, 6th, and 7th grade to now 6th, 7th, and 8th, because it was winter of 2023 to winter of 2024. And then for math, again, they scored 54% being M-STEP ready in the winter of 2023 to now in the winter of 2024 being 69.3% of our students will be M-STEP ready. And this is just a prediction from the winter. We don't take M-STEP until spring. So we're hoping to see an even more of an increase in those numbers when our students take it again in March. And they take M-STEP starting in April. So we were super proud of those numbers and the amount of growth that our students made in reading and math for that screener. So again, kudos to our teachers, kudos to our staff and the hard work that they're doing in their PLCs. We went back to, you know, they're very intentional when they meet and what they talk about and how we service kids. And you can see based on this data and feedback from people who have been outside of our district that what our teachers are doing is working. So kudos to them. Right? And that is all we have. Questions do you have?
I just want to say having this in the board packet prior to the meeting changes up.
Good.
So Allison and Joe, can you address the scores that are on the website? So I don't understand
The M-STEP ones, these ones?
are they star,
Those
That's-
are,
Okay,
The-
so
these
the
are the-
scores that are on
Mhm.
the website, every school has them,
Correct.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So for ELA and math, to me, they look really low. So, I don't, is that accurate? What are you guys looking at to?
so if you look at the
measure?
STAR, if we go back to the STAR, STAR helps us predict how our students are going to test on the M-STEP. So last winter, our scores predicted that about 37.8% of our students would be proficient on the M-STEP for reading, and about 54% of our students would be proficient on the M-STEP in math. So if we go back to this data, 49% of our students were proficient in reading, and again, our STAR scores were predicting only 39% would be proficient, and it went to 49. And in math, it was predicting that 50-some% would be proficient, and it was actually 43. So our STAR scores are a predictor of how they're going to do on the M-STEP. So
That's what's on the website.
this is what's on the website, M-STEP scores. So this year, based on this testing data, the STAR data, it is now telling us for reading, our students will hopefully score, 68% of our students will hopefully score proficient on M-STEP, as opposed to the last year, 49%.
Okay, so where is the data that shows how many students in sixth grade, finishing sixth grade, second grade, eighth grade, are proficient in reading and are proficient in math? So you have these predictions, but what
Right.
actually happened?
So we have the STAR data broken down by grade level. We have that broken down by classroom level even. And that's just our district assessment. That gives us that universal overlook of the data, of how what we can kind of do to try to intervene before they take that statewide test. So those numbers that are online are the state tests. That's M-STEP.
Okay, so maybe I just need to have like a different conversation. I don't know if this is through Yale, or maybe we just talk with Keegan as our board. Where are our students, literally, where are our students at?
Yeah, so those M-STEP scores that are online, that's where that M-STEP, if you use that measure, that's where they're at with M-STEP. With this measure, this is where they're at with STAR. And STAR is hopefully predicting where they will be with MSTEP in the spring.
Okay. So what I wanna know is, how do we get our kids at a higher proficiency level, and what do you need to do that? Do you need material? Do you need parapros? Do you need other support? What, because I don't know.
I think a lot of it right now, I mean, this is a testament from one year to the next of the work that we're doing is working.
Okay.
And it just takes time.
Okay.
You know, say that again?
Stay the course.
Yeah, it takes time. You know, we talk about when districts and schools implement a new curriculum, we see an implementation dip for the first 3 years. We might implement a brand new curriculum and think this is gonna be the best thing, and it might be, but for the first 3 years, we're probably gonna see a decline. And then it's gonna start trending up and going up, and that's just what it is, unfortunately. So there are times where we might have changed up curriculum and things, and where we'll see some years that it starts to go down, but if we don't stay the course, they're never gonna go back up.
Yeah.
We just gotta know that our teachers are doing the right work, we have the right things in place, and we just need to stay that course and continue.
Yeah, so how do we bridge that gap? Or how do you?
I
bridge
think,
that
I think,
gap?
I think that continuing with the PLCs and continuing to work what we're doing. Like I said, in a year, we had over 30% increase for that. So, to me, that's significant, and it's really showing the things that our staff is doing.
Okay.
So one of the problems with the MSTEP is you do it once a year.
Yep.
And it's hard to change things based on one test. So you're doing the STAR testing 4 times a year. So you're getting more immediate feedback, and it's more, and from what I understand about STAR testing, it helps you understand where the deficits are and how you can correct those.
Correct.
It's much more diagnostic and
Granular,
therapeutic,
yes.
to use my lingo that I know, than a summative test where it takes forever to get the results and it's hard to analyze and get feedback. So that you're trying to adjust on the go as you get that started
Right.
information.
Other questions?
Any other questions for now?
Thank you.
Thank you both so much for that presentation. I have gotten the same response every time I've asked this question about middle school. I had a blast in high school, and I would do it again in a heartbeat, but I've yet to find anybody that would want to go back to 7th grade. I mean, because, yeah, and you get to live it daily, but because, I mean, your life is changing, you know, and I think of my own kids and how they were different from 6th grade to 9th grade. It's really profound, and so the opportunity to make a difference in kids' lives is tremendous, and to feel called to deal with that drama that you do on a daily basis. You know, I'm sure the lows are lower and the highs are higher. And to provide students and to look at the comprehensive way that you have tried to encourage them to show up, number one, so that you can educate them. Number two, to provide incentives so that, you know, yeah, you need a little extra help and you can do it. And then we want to get you back to choir, you know, and to.
Or band.
Or band. I've been. Obviously, Mr. Morris has had too much influence on me.
Which is good.
So, but I think those things are really important to create a culture where kids want to be here and staff want to be here. And I think that's probably one of the most important things that principals do is create that culture so that kids want to be there and to set the bar so that kids want to achieve. And I really commend you for that. Now, we can always do better. You know, we'd like to see your MSTEP scores at 85, 90, you know, and everybody would. And so whatever we can do to help get there, and it's encouraging to see this and to really see the deficit that we had coming out of COVID and to try to get the momentum back. And you've done a superb job with that. So anyone else have any comment for them before we move on?
Thank you for that
Thank you.
presentation.
Okay. Now is the time when we have, so that we have audience can bring concerns to us. This is a time that you can relay what those concerns may be. We may have administration get back to you. This isn't a time necessarily of dialogue, but of expressing those concerns to us. We have usually limited comments to 3 minutes. So I believe we have one person who wants to address the board, Liz Cutshaw. Okay, and so if you have a microphone for her.
Actually, I am reading this on behalf of my husband. He couldn't be here, but it's Rich Cutshaw. He's a truck driver. He's on the road and asked me to read this to the board. So hello and good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Rich Cutshaw. I apologize for not being able to be here in person to speak. First of all, I would like to congratulate Rick and Lisa on their victory, and I'd like to thank the people of the Vicksburg School District for not only voting for change, but also voting for the common sense. We now have 2 Christian conservative board members who fully represent Judeo-Christian values, which is what our great nation education system were founded on. It's time we get back on track and away from this woke ideology that has poisoned our schools. To the rest of the board members and administration, I am still in disbelief that all of you remain silent and complicit regarding boys and girls bathrooms. Your silence is consent and hasn't been forgotten, and as you can see, will not be tolerated. The voters of Vicksburg School District have given a clear mandate for change in our children's schools by the overwhelming victory of Rick and Lisa. We are and will hold you all accountable for the decisions or lack thereof that affect our children's education and overall well-being. We have 3 board seats up for election in 2026. This is your notice that we are watching and paying close attention to how each of you conduct yourselves. The voters of Vicksburg have had enough of the dereliction of this board and administration that has greatly affected the students and families of Vicksburg Community Schools, and will be coming after those seats in 2026 unless there is significant change in this board and how it operates. Thank you, and God bless.
We will move on to board action required. We have first the approval of general fund invoices totaling $6,394 and
Yes, we've got the minutes for state.
Oh, yes, okay, so 4A, the approval of minutes, we have 2. We have the regular meeting minutes dated January 13, so we'll need a motion on that.
So moved.
Support.
Support, so we have Tina and Stephanie. Any discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
And opposed, okay. Then we have work session minutes of January 20, and I guess just so that our staff knows, we're trying to be very intentional, I think, as a board to create, just like you have professional learning communities, as we have new leadership and new board members, to try to create a culture where we are all pulling in the same direction. And so we have had our first essentially work session or committee of the whole, and we're planning on doing more work that way. So I wanted you to know that. So we have those minutes. So do we have a motion? Tina,
On the agenda though?
that we had, it said approval of following board meeting minutes. It should have had a 1 and a 2 beneath it. Okay. So we have the work session minutes. So Tina has made the motion. Do we have a second? Support from Stephanie. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Then approval of general fund invoices totaling $606,394.62.
So moved.
Support.
Okay,
guys
Tina
are
and
killing it.
Stephanie on a roll. All right, Stephanie,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and yes. Approval of the Vicksburg Middle School trip to Cedar Point.
So moved.
Moved by
Support.
Tina, support by Lisa.
I will support.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, then we have approval of retirement of teacher Kurt Phelps at the end of the year. Kurt has put in 23 years in Vicksburg, and It- Yeah.
Yeah, what
Well,
happens
we
if
had
you
this
don't approve
discussion
it?
earlier about how we would like to object. And, you
If you
know,
do it nicely, they might come back once
Yeah.
a week and, you know.
well, one of the things, it is nice to celebrate people who have made a real contribution. And Kurt had an effect on, my kids, and that came through the high school. And I certainly have appreciated him. And unfortunately, yeah, I think we figured out that indentured servitude is not allowed anymore, although we would like it to be. So we need a motion to accept his resignation.
So moved.
So moved.
Support.
Support, Rick and Lisa. We have to do a roll call.
Sorry, Adam.
Yeah.
No.
Stephanie.
Yeah.
Lisa.
Yes.
Tina.
Yes.
Rick.
Yes.
And yes, with reluctance. And we have approval of resignation of Jennifer Schmittendorf, effective February 18. She's worked with the district for 6 years.
So moved.
Support.
Tina, supported by Rick. Stephanie,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
Rick,
Yes.
and yes. The next item is for approval of tenure for 2 middle school teachers. And Allison, could you kind of walk us through that, what that means in the process that they've done to get to this point?
Sure. So this time of year is kind of unique. These two were hired before Joe and I were here, but they were mid-year hires. So typically we do tenure at the end of the school year. So every teacher in the state of Michigan, it's a tenure law. If they've been tenured in another district, they serve 2 years as a probationary period. And if they have not received tenure in another district, it's 5 years of a probationary period. And this actually allows that teacher to develop skills and become a great teacher. They have to be assigned a mentor teacher, all sorts of things. So each year they have to get at least effective in their evaluations. And then after the process of 5 years, they can be granted tenure.
So these two have completed that process. And how often do you, as a principal, is that an annual assessment or biannual? Or?
It's based off of our yearly observations. So every teacher that is not tenured has to have an evaluation every year until
Okay.
they are tenured. Current law now is then after that every 3 years. So all teachers that are probationary have to be evaluated every year.
Okay.
Okay.
So these 2 teachers have completed that process, so Megan Lynn and Jay Bennett. So do we have,
Yes, so moved.
so moved by Tina, support by Stephanie?
Love these two.
Any other question? Okay. Okay, so,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
No.
If you have a
This
question.
is, I'll ask after.
okay,
we vote.
all right, Stephanie?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Tina?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And yes. Approval of purchase card disbursements totaling $81,736.70.
Yep. So moved.
Tina's moving.
Support.
Supported by Rick. Stephanie?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Tina?
Yes.
Rick?
Yes.
And yes. The next is the bid package, approval to award the following construction contracts based on the results of Series 3 Release 2 bid package at a total cost of $259,282. Project cost to be funded with proceeds from the 2020 Series 3 Building and Site Bonds. And then, if you're comfortable with this, we can do items 1 through 10, which is all the individual things. With the board's approval, I think it makes sense to do that rather than voting on 10 separate things.
Okay. I'll move approval for that.
Move for that, Tina?
Support.
Support from
Lisa?
Lisa? Okay. I'm
This better be good.
I'm so happy that we have Frederick and Tower involved, and we've had a long track record with them, and it gives me a lot of confidence as a guy who knows next to nothing about building projects, that we have that. So I really appreciate that. So Stephanie,
Yes.
Lisa.
Yes.
Tina.
Yes.
Rick.
Yes.
And yes. And on that, I believe we are adjourned. And